these are the main things that I've been seeing for the performance test. So I've read probably about 20 reports right now, and most of them are suffering from one or multiple of these common problems. One is writing to your audience / the format. It is a letter. It does need to be in the letter format. That means to whom it may concern, and you actually need an audience. I am not your audience. The school is not your audience. You are picking your audience. So, and I know for a lot of you guys that can be hard because you're like, I don't know who I'm picking, and it's different for every person. So your audience should be someone who has to do with whatever you're researching. So if you're doing ice albedo, and it also depends on what you actually want the result to be. So the audience needs to be someone who should care about your research for some reason or another and can actually do some of the things that you want to get done. So for example, Elliot wrote to the Wildfire Commission about, because he specifically was doing deforestation and California wildfires, on how climate change affected those wildfires, and then therefore the research behind that, and therefore what things could the Wildfire Commission do to help make it better. Or if, say, you are doing population, if you wanted to put in some sort of social program that benefited people who were not having kids, that's policy making, that's government. So you want to talk to, depending on how big you want the program, whatever government body you want to be doing something about that. If you are talking about albedo and say the urban heat effect, which, the urban heat effect is basically the idea that cities, because of their color and the material, absorb a lot of heat and cause a lot of warming even in that specific area. So if you specifically were talking about that, you would probably want to talk about, maybe the building painting companies, about how they need to really be pushing white paint to increase albedo. Or somebody found an organization called ICE 911. And so they were writing to ICE 911 about how ICE 911 is great, which they are, but they should probably be writing for ICE 911 to, maybe a funding group. Because if they already have an action plan and they already want to do it, what they probably need, they need money. You need to write to somebody who has the money to donate to this cause. So you could go, you could literally write to Zuckerberg or some other big companies that donate, or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or, different large companies that purposely do philanthropic things. Like they like to donate money to causes that they think are important. So your thing would be proving why this is important. So on that note, make sure you have research. Yeah, you probably, unless it's a thing people don't know about, which ice albedo is not really a common thing. So if you have an uncommon thing, you want to describe what it is. If you're deforestation, you don't really have to explain to them what deforestation is, but you would want to talk a little more about how big the problem is, how many acres are disappearing yearly, daily, some statistics to give them some context on the process, what's happening. And then make sure you have research. You can't just be like, it's really bad. Well, how do you know? Why should we believe you that it's really bad? So you want to make sure anytime you're talking about the research, you can't be like, and it says things are bad. Well, what's bad about it? How can we be more specific? How much ice is disappearing every year? I forget whose it is because I've read so many today. But someone was talking about how the biggest issue with land ice melting specifically was that would cause sea level rise, and 39% of the world population lives in a coastal area. So 39% of the population would be negatively affected by sea rise, which, is billions of people. That's a big deal. That's obviously shows why this issue is important. Billions of people could die, lose their homes, lose their businesses. It would be catastrophic. We couldn't really even put a number on how bad that could be. All right, and so you really want to make sure, why is the thing bad? Back it up with actual logic and research. The next thing, and I think this is probably where people are having some of the biggest issues, is, well, what should we do? And there's a lot of different things you could say. I think probably the least effective thing is a lot of you guys are like, well, we should do all of these things. You're right, we probably should. But you can't expect whoever you are writing to do all of the things. That's like me handing you everything we do for the year, and I'm like, great, now turn it in May. No, that everyone's gonna be like, that's too much, I can't do it. You want to give them maybe like one or two big things, like you should do this. This is the number one important thing. So whenever I give you guys assignments, I'm always like, okay, well, yes, we want to work on this, but here is the main takeaway. I want you to know this. This unit's main takeaway is I want you to know how the Earth energy system works and how we interact with it. So how does our Earth sort of work, and specifically, how can we affect that and change things? So you want them to specifically know what they should do. So let's see, who wrote a good one? Anna did a really good one on population. How she actually wrote out an action plan about how they should target teenage girls' education and like give them incentives and pay for them to go to college on the precedent that they don't get pregnant and contribute to world population. There are probably some ethical issues that like people would come up with that, but that is a very clear, actionable plan. She even laid out how money could be distributed. So, you know, again, like ethically, I'm not sure politicians would go for it because there would be issues, but that's a very clear, actionable plan. Like, this is what you should do. This is how you should do it. This is why it's important. So just saying that, oh, well, we shouldn't cut down the rainforest. I think most people were like, yeah, we shouldn't do that. But so many businesses rely on that. Like Costco relies on that. We have a toilet paper shortage. That, of course, comes from the forest. So you need to think about what are some things they can actually do, because they can't just be like, well, you know, company's over. We're just going to disband. Paper business is over. We're just done. You know, that's a huge amount of money. That's a huge amount of people who rely on those jobs. So what can we do? Either to give people in the Amazon a better job, because a lot of them farm, and you can't farm where there's trees. You need the sun. So you got to give them other things they can do. Or for the paper companies, you know, incentivizing cutting down the trees, you need to give them something else they can use instead of cutting down the trees. Unfortunately, the other thing we do tend to use is also plastic, which we're also like, wait, but that's bad. So it's not like companies strive to be bad for the environment. It's just that tends to be the cheapest outcome, so that's what they do. If you can provide them a better idea, people are way more likely to go for it. If you just tell them stop, they're like, well, you know, we're doing the best we can. Show them a better way. You know, maybe it won't always work. That's okay. You're a teenager. Your job isn't to make the perfect plan. Your job is to be like, hey, I have ideas. You should try them because I'm new and I've come up with new ideas. So it's okay if you're like, I don't know if this will work. None of us know if it's going to work. That's fine. Try to really think, well, what do you think is the most important thing they should be doing? Like, what can they change? And especially if you're writing to a business, the thing your businesses probably care about, it's money. Like, let's be honest, most of them just really care about the money. So why is it important to them creating customers that they do this? Because probably a lot of these things, the reason they don't do them is they cost more money. And so that means they either have to charge more or they have to make more, or make less. So they need to understand why it's valuable, even if it's going to cost them money. So that's kind of my big 3 things. On that note, I'll open it up to questions, or if you guys have anything you'd like me to clarify. A big thing is when you are writing your proposals is you want them to be actionable, which means you can tell them all you want, like, you should stop doing this. But they need like an action plan. Like, what should I do? So, and like, this is a hard part. So I do want us to, you know, it's fine if you're like, I don't know if this would like work, but like make it a more attempt at it. That's kind of like, for me, I feel like the difference between a B paper and an A paper. So if you say like they are responsible for it, well, what can they do to better that? How can they say reduce their use of the Amazon? How can they practice better stewardship of the Amazon? Like, can they say find ways to plant these trees and like have like a set area and say plant, let it grow, cut, and then like, you know, have a cycle so that they're only affecting a specific part, not destroying age-old rainforest, because that's the issue. Is we can replant all we want, but it takes a long time to rebuild that, especially the whole ecosystem of the plants and the animals and how they interact. So is there any way they could say set that up in a more, you know, like a set way, like, oh, they planted trees and then, you know, 20 years later they come and cut them down. And so that way maybe they aren't taking away new rainforest, they just have this particular swatch of land that they use. Is there a way that they could reduce their use? Is there different alternatives they can use? And I'm gonna be honest, this is something I don't really know that much about because I am not great at plant biology. It's actually probably one of the things I am really not good at. So when you guys are coming to me with solutions, for the most part, I'm like, that's great. Do you have more research on it? Because I literally don't know. So Anaya, on yours, I think overall it looks really good. Just maybe add some like specific things that that company can do to fix what they're doing. Whether that's reduce their use, whether that's make a more environmentally planned to use the Amazon. Kind of the issue is like population-wise, we're growing, which means we need more things, which means we need to kill more things to use those things. So you can start thinking about, and you can always target like the bottom line, like as our generations get more and more environmentally conscious, less people are going to want to use companies that are not doing environmentally friendly practices. So you can always try to appeal to that as well to better make your case. That help answer your question, Anaya?
Yeah.
All right, cool.